Good morning and welcome to Workplace Safety Webinar with Kirkwood Community College. My name is Paulette Maluski and I'm a Program Sales Manager here at Kirkwood, and I am delighted and honored to introduce to you your speaker today, Dave Hughes. Dave's been with Kirkwood since 2010 as our Fire and Safety Program Manager, and prior to that he served as Fire Chief with General Mills Powertrain. And before that, he was in the Air Force for 22 years with his last assignment as Training Chief of the Firefighter Academy. He is an Associate of Science in Fire Science from the Community College of the Air Force and holds multiple international fire service accreditation certificates. So you're in good hands. He's really well versed in OSHA, and I hope that the next half hour you pick up some good hints and tips on how to make your workforce more safe.
All right, thank you, Paulette. Paulette's correct. We are going to talk about OSHA's top 10 citations. We're not going to talk about all of them, just a few of them. Workers around the country are injured every day, and OSHA issues citations every day. You can always increase your safety values and behavior for you and your employees. Kirkwood offers a vast variety of safety topics for the safety worker, supervisor, senior management. Kirkwood also offers the courses you need to start or complete a professional safety certificate. Today we're going to, the safety webinar will include OSHA's annual top 10 most cited violations, what aspects of fall protection standard receives the highest citations, why is a hazardous communication a close second in violations, and where do the ladders fit in here? To get the most current OSHA safety information, you can sign up for OSHA QuickTakes to receive a regular email from OSHA. It comes about every 3 weeks. QuickTakes includes current top stories information on corporate programs, enforcement, and safety and health resources. Just go to OSHA.gov and sign up. It's usually when you go to OSHA.gov, that little box on the left there, the QuickTakes will pop up and give you an option to go ahead and sign up. So encourage you to do that. So OSHA gathers the violation data and shares with the working public. As you can see, the past 3 years of violations, there's not much change as the information comes from the National Safety and Health magazine. Highlighted red shows that fall protection training has replaced electrical general violations. Now fall protection has 2 in the top 10. These are not final. I believe that some other numbers just came out, and they probably won't be finalized till first quarter of this year. But they normally don't change too often, as you can see over the past few years. So let's look at fall protection, general requirement citations. That was number 1. The slide shows the top 5. Now you may notice that they are 1926 501s. These are all construction standards. You may be general industry, but this doesn't mean that they don't apply. If you have a construction company come in and they are rebuilding something in there or installing something new, they're going to have to comply with the construction standard. There is a difference in fall protection in construction industry. When workers are working at a height of 6 feet or more, they need some form of fall protection. In general industry, the height is set at about 4 foot or over. Now, many construction companies, when they go on into the factory setting, they have to follow the 4 foot rules. So a lot of construction companies have just gone with the 4 foot rule to eliminate confusion and argument on the construction site. There's a lot on this slide. You can see the violations on the left and a lot of pictures there. So there are 3 basic forms of fall protection. You can see what they are: the guard railing system, a safety net, and personal fall arrest system. Now, workers like the guard railing. They don't have to wear that bulky, cumbersome fall protection harness, and that's definitely a plus. However, you do see a lot of harnesses on the job site where guarding rails cannot be done. The safety net is an option, but not used too often. You have to have a form of fall protection in place to protect your workers. Make sure you address that 6 and 4 foot rule. Now, for training, you can go to OSHA.gov and search for V tools. You can see that, and look for the prevention videos under construction hazards. And this slide shows the falls in construction. And again, they pretty much go with general industry too. They're very good videos. So in review, the bottom line is that fall protection is required to protect the worker. Guardrails are nice to work around. The personal fall arrest systems are a bit bulky, but once a worker is used to it, it usually works out. And safety nets are not seen that often, but they are a form of fall protection that you may use. Let's drop down on the list to number 9 and stay with fall protection under training. So I take a bit of a pause here. Employers need to train their people. I don't understand why an employer can't train their people in a life and death situation. And then on the other side, how can the employee not ask for training and understanding when they enter into a life and death situation? Now, Iowa OSHA reports that there were 33 falls with 9 fatalities in 2016, resulting in falls from elevation. There were 49 falls with 5 fatalities last year. So let that soak in. There's 52 weeks in a year, nearly 1 fall per week in Iowa. We need to do our part and get the message out. So let's cover these 3 citations here. Training to recognize hazards and fall covers all 3 violations. The employee needs to be trained on everything to recognize a fall hazard. Again, when working at heights of 6 feet for construction and 4 feet for general industry, this should trigger an automatic response to get fall protection in place to start the job task. OSHA is here to protect the worker. The employer is required to train on everything a worker does that could injure them. During an OSHA investigation, one of the first questions asked to the employee is, were you trained? The next question is to the employer, where are the training records? So let's look at the anatomy of a fall graphic here. 1 second, you fall 16 feet. When you blink, it takes 1/3 of a second. So now blink 3 times. You just fell 16 feet. Fall protection would have stopped you or caught you by now. And this graphic shows a calculation of total fall distance. Starting at the top, there's an anchor point. The lanyard is 6 feet long with a deceleration distance of 3.5 feet. This is a device that releases slowly, limits the reaction on stopping the body, so the body's not being jerked when you fall. It makes a smooth stopping transition. It's basically a series of stitches that release as the person falls. Then add the height of a 6-foot worker and a safety factor of 3 feet. The total distance is 18.5 feet of distance the worker will fall. If there's not 18.5 feet below for you to fall, you're going to have to get some other type of fall arrest system. However, you determine your fall distance. It needs to match your equipment and be taught to your employees. Now, when you purchase equipment, use a vendor, not the internet. The vendor can train you and your employees on the equipment they just sold you. Get it in the purchase contract. Buy the training from them if you need to. You have to let your employees touch and play with the equipment before getting on the job site. Fall protection has come a long way in the past 5 years. Comfort, ease of use, functionality have all been considered during the design of the equipment. Sticking with training here, a written certification record includes, as you can see, the name of the employee, the dates, the signature of the person who conducted the training. The bottom line, if it's not on paper, it didn't happen. That should be a good motto that you stick with. If it's not on paper, it did not happen. Trained by a competent person. I'll give you a second here to read that definition. As you get down to the bottom, it says, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measure to eliminate them. The question I get is, who determines the competent person? The simple answer is, it's the employer. You need someone that can take a look at a situation and say yes or no. There should not be any guessing when it comes to fall protection. Now, OSHA encourages employees to participate in the National Safety Stand Down to prevent falls in construction. This is done annually the first week of May. Kirkwood is planning to hold an event. Look for information in the near future. It's a voluntary event for employers to take directly to employees about the safety. Take a break, focus on fall hazards, reinforce the importance of fall prevention, Have a conversation with employees about hazards, the protective methods, and your policies and goals. Bring in a vendor to discuss the equipment that you just purchased, or maybe you want to purchase. Perform an annual inspection on the equipment. Sure everybody's inspecting it the right way. Just do something for fall protection to get the word out. This could be a 10-minute, an hour, a 4-hour, all-day event. Go to the OSHA website and look up National Safety Stand Down, and you'll get all kinds of information. There's hundreds, not thousands of companies that participate in this every year. Okay, so let's back up a little bit onto the list and get to number 2. These violations just will not go away from the top 10, this hazardous communication. Now, December of 2013, OSHA set a training by date for employees. Ever since, it's been locked into number 2. Now, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, it's a new standard, and it's easy to find violations in the work area when it comes to hazardous communication. Now, companies not developing a written hazardous communication program leads the way, as you can see. Now, the program contains all the information an employee needs to know about hazardous chemicals in the workplace. Identify the hazardous chemicals, that's number 5 on the list. Identify containers. You should know what's in a long cylinder that is a high pressure. You should know what's in a drum, probably a liquid. What's in a tote, probably a liquid. Who's responsible for the program? Safety data sheet procedures are number 3 and 4 on the list, and how to train employees, which is number 2 on the list. Now, the program will take time, but it all pays off in the end because your employees are better trained, and that emergency action plan is ready for the local fire department when they show up on scene. Safety data sheet violations. Well, they're required for a safety data sheet, as you know, are required for every hazardous chemical used. It needs to be available for review. Paper or electronic is acceptable. If your company has multiple locations, the SDSs need to be available at each location. Now, when you purchase something, the suppliers are required to supply that safety data sheet with every chemical they send you. Make sure it happens for your company. I know this is a lot of work. You may have one person designated, that's all they do is safety data sheets. Gathering them and putting them in a book or putting them online, you have to go beyond that. You have to share it with your people. You have to encourage your people that if they're asked to use a chemical, that they will ask, well, what are the safe procedures? What PPE do I need to do? How do I handle it safely? What if I get exposed? Where do I go and get treatment? So please take time on the safety data sheet and get that information out to your people. Now, maintaining your hazard program and use it to train your employees, again, another violations there. A quick reminder to your employees is to get these fact sheets off the OSHA website and post them on bulletin boards or lay them around in the break room. This just gets the message out. As you can see on the screen there, it talks about the safety data sheets. It talks about the 16 different areas of a safety data sheet. And then the hazardous communication standard pictograms. These pictograms are slowly getting out there, and they're on labels. They're also in the safety data sheet. So if you get a new chemical in, look at the label. These markings should be on there. All right, so let's go down the list a little bit more to number 6 here, ladder safety. I've talked with many safety managers, and a lot of them, probably over half of them, want to eliminate ladders on the job site. Well, that's a great idea, but ladders are a reality on the job. We need to follow the ladder rules that are established on the ladder. I mean, there's markings on the ladders of how to use the ladder. Get the message out. Get your employees that want to have them want to look at the instructions on there. So let's kind of define a little bit here. Portable ladders are extension ladders and step ladders. Extension ladders are required to extend 3 feet from the surface you are stepping onto. So basically 3 rungs. That gives you 3 foot. The rungs are 12 inches apart. The surface of the ladder sits on must be stable and level. Hopefully you're getting a little chuckle on the right there, the picture there. Putting 2x4s under one of the rails is not a good idea. Get the ground level. I know that they make devices that you can use for unlevel surfaces. Be cautious with that. If the manufacturer of the ladder does not approve that, it's not acceptable. This slide shows step ladders being used improperly. Leaning them against a wall is not their design purpose. They're to be spread open and locked open. Of course, workers should not use the top step as a step. That's another violation. So get a taller ladder is a fix. Get rid of the ladders, figure out how to do it. That's another fix. But that takes time and effort and commitment to the whole group. Now, ladders need to be inspected prior to use. And as I said, the instructions are normally should be on the side of the ladder. And when a ladder does not pass inspection, it must be taken out of service immediately. Not at the end of the task, not at the end of the shift, not tomorrow. The ladder should be tagged do not use. Some I talked to cut the ladder up and dispose of it immediately to prevent use by the workers. A bit extreme, but what if the ladder fails because of the defective ladder? Falling from ladders are a leading cause of injury and death to the job site worker. Workers need to use ladders as intended, and when they do not pass the initial inspection, they need to be taken out of service. Look at your ladder policy and see if you have all these violations covered to prevent possible citations. All right, today's webinar we talked about OSHA's annual top 10 most cited violations list. We saw that the top 5 cited violations have not changed over the past 3 years, and that fall protection training is now in the top 10. What aspects of fall protection standard receives the highest citation? Not using any form of fall protection as a minimum. Remember that the fall protection needs to either be a guardian system, safety net, or personal fall arrest system when they're working at heights. Why is hazardous communication a close second of violations? Again, it's a newer standard. OSHA's looking for the violations, and that's not a bad thing. All the violations cited on that list can be eliminated with good training and action by the employee. Develop the written hazardous communication program and share it with your employees. Again, I understand it takes time. It takes a lot of effort to get all your hazardous communication or all your hazardous chemicals put together, get the information on them, and share that with your employees, but it needs to be done. Where do ladder violations fit into the top 10? Well, as you saw, ladders are number 6. They moved up 1 spot from the past 2 years. Not using the ladder correctly, setup, positioning, and using an unsafe ladder are the top 5 sections cited. Kind of been hinting here that I understand that training takes time, which costs money, but you have to do it. Training needs to include the concept of behavior-based safety. OSHA's kind of trending towards the behavior-based safety. There's a few courses out there that you can get that OSHA has developed to help change that safety behavior. Managers and employees need to own safety in the workplace, need to work together. When new procedures are developed, everyone needs to be involved in the decision. That's safety program ownership by all. Well, you're attending this webinar because you care about safety. We thank you for that. We care too. For that reason, Kirkwood hosts the East Central Iowa Safety and Health Safety Conference coming up February 22nd. Safety professionals like yourself attend the event. They do some networking, learn something about safety, or they get their safety behavior recharged. Our keynote speakers this year are nationally known speaker Kevin Brown speaking on the hero effect, a very good message, and a local unknown speaker, Jeff Welter, speaking of safety of the whole, safety for the whole person. Now he's unknown until he tells a story, really a good story. So we really hope to see you there. So we got a few minutes here for some questions, if anybody has any. If can type them in there. My contact information is on the screen right now. More than welcome to give me a call, send me an email. I can direct you to some training that you may need. If you have a specific OSHA question, I'll get you in contact with Iowa OSHA and they'll help you out with that. Somebody's asked about the definition of the competent person. There are many parts of the OSHA standards that talk about competent person, and they define it basically as this. There's also another term that you may be familiar with, and that is qualified person. The qualified person is a person that has received training, advanced training, basic safety, more than basic safety awareness. So there's two different here. The competent person is able to say, hey, there's a problem here. We need to stop it right now and fix it. Have another question here. What needs to be taught to the employees for HazCom? Well, basically on day one, the employer needs to know the chemical hazards that he or she may be in their work area, the effect of if exposed on there, is it going to hurt their eyes, get on their skin? Maybe there isn't an effect. And what to do in case of emergency. How do I sound the alarm? How do I tell somebody? So that needs to be on day one. Refresher training for the employee that's been there for a while. They need to have this periodic training, basically what I just talked about. And then when do they need the training is when new chemicals are in the area and if any chemical hazards have changed. The company I worked at before, a supervisor would want to purchase a new chemical. The company would send the safety data sheet. We as a group of probably 10 of us would look at that safety data sheet in our specific areas of what we need to know. My areas were what's it going to do in case it starts on fire, what type of extinguisher will you need, and how do I store it? So we'd look at those sections of the safety data sheet. Yeah, I would recommend a fire extinguisher if it's different than what was in there, and then if it needed to be stored. Question about the 4 and 6 rule. In construction, well, I don't believe I have that on the screen here. If you're working in general industry, so if your factory setting covers the 1910 standard, when you have fall protection requirements, it's at when the worker is working at 4 feet or above. That would not necessarily a step ladder. They're not going to need fall protection going on a step ladder, but if they're working on an open edge, they'll need the fall protection. When it comes to construction, they extended it up to the 6 foot. So if they're working on top of a roof, they would need the fall protection at the 6 foot mark. So anything above that.
And are there any resources, Dave, that you could direct our listeners to find out more information about this?
Yeah, the OSHA standards 1910 and 1926 under fall protection. The 1910, I believe it's 1910-21 under walking working surfaces. That's where the fall protection is. Okay, I got one more here. Are there any locations that fall protection may not be needed? Well, two of them come to mind real quick, and they're shipping docks, on a shipping dock and dock boards. That's in the new walking working surface. And you got to watch out when you have a shipping dock that there should only be authorized personnel in that area, and they've been trained that when the overhead door is open, that they stay away from that. Or if you have an open dock, that you stay away from that edge. That's why we need to keep the visitors out of the shipping docks so they're not falling over the edge. Now, as I said, that they're not required in this location, but they do make devices that you can move and put in front of the shipping dock. So when the truck backs in, they'll cover the hole, and then protection can be removed. So that would be a suggestion. Kind of look at your shipping dock, see if there is a need for any fall prevention, and put it in if you feel that you need to. Again, you can contact me directly. You have the phone number here and an email, and we can work through it. And looks like that's about it. So thank you for attending the workplace safety webinar today.